of registrations that don't match. It's number 3, non-matches. So we're going to see all these numbers in action. There's also deceased. So on average, we're seeing 6,000 deceased voters in the country registering. They're targeting Texas, okay? Texas is the first big blue bar. They're averaging about 100,000 a week. Now Florida, on average, so there's a legitimate reason. If you don't have a, you're new to the country, you have a passport, you're a new citizen, maybe you just turned 18, and you have no other ID. You can use your passport and your last 4 digits, and the county sends the information up to the feds who approves the registration that you are a person. So there is a legitimate use, but we believe they're using it in reverse, where the feds are putting in the registrations and pushing them down to the counties, to the local jurisdictions. So Texas, this is just from, let's see, from January 1st to May 13th, 962,000 voters registered. It's impossible. And the funny thing is, when Texas was closed and all the government offices were closed during COVID, they managed to register 1.7 million voters.
It's not impossible. That's how many came over the border.
That's what it is. No, that's what I'm getting at. So they have no ID, no state ID, no driver license, and what's happening, and this all ties into what just happened in Florida. There's anyone hear the term 3PVO, third-party voting organizations? This is part of the 7050 law that the federal judge just repealed. So what Florida said in 7050 was, you have to be a citizen to work for an NGO or a 3PVO. NGO is non-governmental organization. So we passed a law and we said you have to be a citizen in order to register another citizen. And the federal judge said that's not constitutional. So I didn't know non-citizens had constitutional rights. But so what I believe is happening is they are registering the illegals and they're using the CBP-1 app. So that, has anyone heard of CBP-1? Customs Border Patrol. This is why you don't see, remember in the beginning of the border invasion, there was 10,000 under the Rio Grande Valley, overpass, and we had drones, and what they got smart. They made an app, and now everything is electronic. Excuse me, my voice is very hoarse. Does anyone remember a HBO documentary called Hacking Democracy? It was from 2006, and there was a follow-up HBO documentary called Kill Chain, and that was in 2018. And I just got back from Fayetteville, Georgia, and we filmed the third HBO documentary. It's going to come out in June 2024, and a lot of this is covered. So I had to do a lot of different takes, and I talked a lot. So you hear in the media what they want us to think. Oh, Pennsylvania cleared up their voter rolls, right? We took off 100,000 people, but they added in one, let's see, what is this period? In 2022, they added Pennsylvania added almost 1.8 million. Now, we have these non-matches in Texas, 331,000, where the number didn't match. The 4-digit number was rejected. Now, we don't know if they're still being registered. I'm working with America Project and Tom Holman, and his second in charge is a guy named Jason Ikes, who's running for Congress in Michigan. So him and I teamed up. He's also in a documentary. Let's see what this is. So this is just more numbers. Oh, Arkansas. Okay, here's something funny about Arkansas. If you remember this, the State of the Union address, Sarah Huckabee Sanders did the response, and the 2 weeks after, she got like almost 1 million registered. So we're looking into that too. It's very hard to get data. So there's non-matches. I don't want to go too much. There's a lot on data, and what we double checked, the population growth isn't matching in Texas. Everyone says, "Oh, population, it's not even close." It's like one. It's not even close. So this is about the CBP-1 app, and the Mexican cartels have hacked into it. This is from last month. And this is when we really saw an increase in Texas, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. That's where they're really targeting, and also Arkansas. So this is about the third-party NGOs, right? Where the federal judge you forced us basically to allow the non-citizens. And here's something that's very important, and you should take this down. tinyurl.com/Florida voters. Request the extract disc so they know we're watching. If we keep them on defense, they can't be on offense. So this is one thing, part of the plan, is that everybody request that voter disc. And that's tinyurl.com/Florida voters. And we can take a look at how Florida's doing. It's been good. In 2021, we got 100,000 illegals, I believe. Now, this is where we need action. In New York, I have a weird system. You have a voter registration ID for the state, but you also have another ID for the county. And every time you move to a different county, you're supposed to get a different ID. Well, for the county, so it's built to fail. It's built for fraud. So we know for a fact that there's 170,790 unique individuals registered. So there's only
Incredible, huh?
which seems light based on the population. But what we found are 2.4 million voter IDs.
Imagínense
So
ustedes,
that means there's
en New York hay 1.170.790 individuos registrados para votar. Y sin embargo, votaron 2.427.827. De ellos, 640.396 eran votantes inelegibles. Y 338.358 más votos que votantes existían.
In a massive way, then that's going to get attention in New York. That's one lawfare, that's one legal action that we need to take if we're going to be serious about this. Going on Zoom calls and meetings, it's great, but it doesn't solve the problem. And there's an organization who's working on this. I'll get to the name. I think it's on the slide. But what they've done is they had this data. Basically peer review, so it's in science. It's basically considered to be factual. So a peer review document holds a lot of weight in court. And New York has been peer reviewed. In data, it's called loss of control. So New York State has loss of control. Many other states do. So this is where it gets interesting. Everyone talks about common law grand juries, right? Oh, we're going to start our own grand jury. Well, that's kind of a stretch, sovereign citizen stuff. How do you do it? But we actually have a law where the people say, the statute is 905.16. And this gives the people pretty much, we're equal to the Attorney General or the state prosecutor. So we could, if you ever notice, you can't find where they hold the grand juries. Because they can't stop a citizen from walking into a grand jury when they convene and handing the floor person evidence and skip the prosecutor. So that's one thing we can do. And the next thing we can do is there's a special law just for candidates like you and I. And we can say, and I know for a fact, in Palm Beach County there's 1,441 people registered who are over 100 years old who haven't voted in 12 years. And they're not removed from the voter rolls. So that's a violation of the law. So if we could get that indictment, then we have subpoena power, and then we can start looking at other things. So we know there's criminal activity because it violates this 98, I forgot what it is offhand. These are the numbers just for Palm Beach County, and that wasn't even hard to find. This is the statute, 98.0865. Effectively, every supervisor of election is guilty of not maintaining the voter roll and the voter rolls, and they're breaking this law. Everyone should know the law. If we're going to be serious, we need to know the numbers, we need to know the law. So we have two legal theories, right? First is New York, and we know who they are civilly. Second one is the people or the candidates can go into the grand jury, try to get an indictment, and then once we get the indictment, we can really dig and go further. Now, this is the third legal theory, and I'm almost done. What this says is basically, if you walk into a precinct with a vote by mail ballot and you need assistance, the person who assists you has to be an elected official and they have to sign an oath. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, the next thing is, in the Florida Constitution, Article 6, Section 2, I think it is, all elections by the people shall be by direct and secret vote. So, is a vote by mail ballot direct? Does it go to the post office? Does it go to your mailbox? Does your college kid take it from the mailbox, put it on your kitchen table, and under, maybe duress, if you have a liberal wife who won't cook, you fill out your ballot. So, this is not secret and it's not direct. So, I believe that these vote by mail ballots aren't constitutional, just based on that. Now, everybody know Mike Caruso is a state rep? So we were in a texting jam when he was in session on 75th in the election integrity bill. And I told him about, when I ran for Congress last last election cycle, I started out running in Palm Beach County and I realized it was a total disaster and I switched to Boone County North, where at least I knew I could basically leverage the risk by having 3 different supervisors because there's 3 different counties. So I was running with Palm Beach County and a Haitian couple approached me and they said for $85,000, we'll guarantee that she'll win the primary and we're going to go and get all the Haitians, we'll get their vote by mail ballots. And I texted this to him, his phone number, he got cut off. But this is what he answered me. Yeah, they do that. Tracy is his wife. She ran for mayor of Delray. So that's what he said. Tracy did not play in her city election in Delray. Tracy got no Haitian vote. She lost. Now I went ballistic on him, and I said, well, why aren't you on the floor right now in Tallahassee? And I told a whole bunch of people, why are you standing up? You know what DeSantis did? He flew to Israel the day of the vote. Remember that? He went to Israel and that anti-hate speech thing? So, even more evidence. Now, this is really bad, and this has been on the books for a long time. And for some reason, they changed it in the last session. It went from 2A to 3C, 98.0981. And this has to do with reporting precinct level results. And what it says, at the precinct level, in a race or an issue, have fewer than 30 votes going on the ballot, the ballot type must be reported as 0, except for the totals in that precinct. So they changed the verbiage, because I called them out on it. When they put the last law, 98, it was 2A, the same, they numbered it wrong. It went from like 1A to 3B. I'm like who's reading this? So they changed this verbiage, but what does it mean? So there's different categories of vote. There's early vote, there's same-day vote, there's vote by mail. There's 4 columns in the total when you look at the final results. So what they're saying is if there's very few votes, which basically is maybe in a lot of precincts, not a lot of people are going to vote early, or because there's only so many, right? So or maybe there's for whatever reason, if there's less than 30 votes of any vote type, they don't have to report the detail. So what they can do is reverse engineer, if there ever was an audit, the votes. And I'll show you how bad it is. So they're hiding the detail, which that's against the Florida Constitution as well. So I'm an IT guy, we wrote a little program. And what we did was, we took all the data from the election results, and we put it into this little application where you can ask a question about your data. But you see how 4 columns are filled out? So this is good, right? No, there's provisional votes, 0. But they got rid of that column now because there's so few provisional votes, that means they wouldn't have to give any detail. So they changed that. Now, we took a look at one of the most important races, I believe, is the sheriff. The sheriff's going to enforce the laws, and I was hoping you were running for sheriff. This was Palm Beach County Sheriff. This was Rick Bradshaw and Laura Diaz. And what we did was, we checked every precinct, and we found, you see how it's all blank? They only give us totals. They don't give us any detail. Because the vote by mail ballots are so massively skewed, they're hiding. And this is on the books. And that has to change. And that's another part of the legal, what we have to do actionable items is to get them to change that when they go into session. And let's just take a look what it affect. In effect, almost over 1/3 of the votes had no detail. So we don't know. How do you know if it's a legitimate election? It's not transparent. So it happened in over 40% of the precincts, and it equated to hiding 37% of the votes. Yeah. So these are the actionable items, right? If we can get candidates who are really America first, who aren't selected to go in and get criminal charges, I can find it in the data. I'll find something. It's a very vague law that how to clean the rolls up because 5 people who didn't vote in 2 cycles. It's illegal. It's a crime. But you see, Broward County was way worse than Palm Beach. I don't remember the numbers. So that's one thing. Second one is civil action against at least 248,000 people who have had identity theft. Basically, that's how I look at it, because there's more than their let's call it their master ID from the state is attached to different numbers. So someone's stealing their identity, and I don't want to persecute the people, but I want to bring attention to the problem. And then we want to lobby for reform. So what happened in New York and the people that got this peer review and did all this information, they go to every single board meeting, whether it's town council, county, and they pound them with information with their 3-minute public speaking time. And they ask them to sign petitions to get rid of the voting machines and to create a new voter database, which is really what you need to do. So those are the actionable items, right? And there's something else we can do that's kind of complicated. You have 2 more minutes. So with the feds are withholding the information. I was on Real America's Voice, and I was talking about this, and then they broke in for Trump, so I didn't get to finish when he was in Iowa. And I did a radio with Matt Rinaldi from Texas, who is the Texas chair of GOP. And he called me out and said, no, we only have 240,000. So in my mind, I'm thinking he's hiding it, he's a rhino. But now we're figuring out that the feds they have them somewhere in those trucks where I showed you. You can look for yourself, but they're not going to push them down until right before the election, so you can't really find them. And we found this on the technical side, okay, where they're going into open ports and they're using different technologies to go and run queries, and they're uploading and downloading data back and forth. So what we can do is reach out to the Republican attorney generals to sue the states that have these massive numbers of what we know are illegals registering to vote to get that information. So there's really 4 legal tactics to take, and we have to do it. I've been calling, I've been yelling, screaming from the rooftops, since 2020, and nothing's changed. It's actually gotten worse. And that's why I picked up Hacking Democracy from 2006. It's 17 years. Nothing's changed. It's gotten worse. Questions?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr.
I'm done.
But Ken Paxton, you already have some attorney generals that got, he got through his problem.
Yep.
But you already have some protections.
Well, we've been in touch with Matt Paxton because he's been a little tied up. But Steve Toth, a state rep in Texas that we're working with to get, now that Paxton's freed up, we're going to pressure him, and Jeff Landry from Louisiana. And that's it. I mean, there's only so many of us. That's what. Yeah, well, that's yes. We know DeSantis is basically, his handler is basically an operative for Ukraine. Laura Luma uncovered this. Yeah.
So we have to
You do? You do?
Es un enviado de Mar-a-Lago para hablar de las pruebas que tenemos en las elecciones, de lo que está haciendo y instruir a la gente acerca de lo que tenemos que hacer
PowerPoint, and
en
you
este
send it out to
momento.
everyone.
está presentando las pruebas de las cosas que han pasado en los diferentes estados.
I'm running for Congress, for any donation I take, it's to get this fixed, because I know I'm not going to win. Like, why donate to candidates who aren't selected when you know it's going to be stolen? Sorry, guys. But we need to, you know, the candidates, if the candidates all press,
Fix it now.
we need to fix it now, yes.
Well, we don't have a chance.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you something else. With Brian, so someone did an analysis of my race. I didn't ask for it, but I went to some meeting with Lara Logan and Patrick Byrne, and there's my name in my race. And what they found was, they only looked at 13 out of 762 precincts. But the 13 precincts they looked at, Brian Mass got the first sequential cast vote records. The first 50, before I even got one. And then he went straight up. And if you look at the trajectory, mine, you know, we would have been like neck and neck, but he got the first 50. And the other thing, too, about secret and direct, going to the Constitution, let's just say that, I know that Palm Beach County had 292,000 approximate vote by mail ballots. Whoever's certifying the election, if I set them down, and I just found the attorney, and I read out every cast vote record, and I asked them, could they swear or affirm that that ballot was cast in secrecy? They couldn't, they'd be lying. I went to gun shows after my election, and I asked many people, did you vote for me? You know, I think so, but my wife filled out the ballot. So how can a supervisor or certifying official swear or affirm this, that it's secret or direct? So I think that the constitutional play has legs too. There's some routes to go into, you know, it's gonna take a lot of people. It's gonna take a lot of questions.
Is Pennsylvania the only state that does not require any kind of ID to vote?
No, Virginia.
No, Virginia.
Virginia also?
Yeah.
How do we correct that? Is this, why are some states allowed to do one thing and others aren't?
Yeah, well, okay, so that's a good point, but we know the state legislators set the laws for the state, but this is another thing going back to this federal law. A lot of the times these laws, they're not, you know, written for the people, they're written for the uniparty. But you can only have an error rate of 1 in 125,000 for a federal election to be certified, and we know it's way more than that. So there's another, so this is yet a fifth now legal play. This group, it's called New York Citizens Audit. It's New York Citizens Audit. And what they're doing, very slow and deliberately, is they're filing, they have a legal theory, and they're putting it together, and what they want to do is go after the certifying officials, the same way I just said the certifying officials, they can't swear that every cast vote is secret. Well, we know they're above the 1 in 125,000, because just look at New York. So those elections are basically not provable, and they're fraudulent. So that's another way we go, is if we put everyone in touch with this group, but I don't like their play, because they're waiting too long, and they want this, they think it's gonna happen in one big lawsuit, and they're gonna fix it. If there's a lot of little things going on, like in Florida, you can go after the 67 supervisor of elections, and, you know, even if we did a suit 1,000 people in New York, well, hey, there's something going on here, right? That will get people's attention. And, you know, the other thing too is, really what needs to be done is, the Supreme Court needs to say that, basically, voter rolls are not constitutional, and we've shown the loss of control, and we just vote like North Dakota with our ID. You know, you still do it by precinct, and everyone who's known, you list them. So, you know, there's a lot of questions. A lot of people will say, well, can they vote twice? Da, da, da. There's ways to fix it. No, voter doesn't. Yes.
Margie Garcia and I think Sheila, we've talked about getting involved in hunting out the fraudulent, you know, the duplicates and everything in the voter rolls. So would that only be for us in Florida, or would it be national? And where do we go, and how do we start? When we talk about it, it never gets started.
Yeah, well, see, you're like one of the things I said. You can't out ballot harvest the fraud, and you're not going to be able to go knock on doors and fix it in time, because they're going to just push more data into the system. They have a lot of APIs that push data. There's another very bad website. It's FLVAP. I mean, no, sorry, FVAP. Federal Voters Assistance Program.gov. And if you're overseas and you identify as a military member's family, it could be boyfriend, girlfriend, they register you to vote through that. And so in WebElec, if you could find people that live in Cuba that have no local address that are voting. They live in all these different countries. So there's problems. The whole system has to be, basically, we need reform. We can't fix what they have. They're too, it's election espionage. And that's what
You can't use technology.
So what can they do? What can we do? What can they do specifically? Right? That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, so actionable items, we can, contacting your state legislators, going to the town council meetings, being local, bringing more people into this, and also, you know, we're gonna need lawyers, and I'm pledging that all my campaign contributions are gonna go to that, and phone calls, bring more people in. If we can have a presence at the town council meetings with petitions, so if you could bring, you know, I don't know, 5 people, and they all speak for 3 minutes. I also started to edit like 2-minute clips of Democrats saying how bad the machines are. So you could just go there and play your phone and let the town council members hear it, and then just have a minute speech. So I'm gonna have these on my website so everyone can download them. This is what's working in New York. New York has a lot of traction.
Are there any, I'm sorry, I was just gonna ask, you mentioned Mike.
Yes. What's mine?
Yeah, the microphone.
I was at his last, so this is the 3rd summit we just had 2 months ago. It was in Springfield, Missouri, and I was there. And I knew it would be a letdown because Mike Lindell, we have some history. He taught me tridox and me and some stuff on Huffington Post. That's 15 months.
Or
But what Mike Lindell's plan is to have a drone that to go over the so what he wants to do is sniff the open connections that go to the internet that are wireless. Because there's another scam that they're doing. They're using LTE and they're tying into basically what the law enforcement uses to Ericsson. Ericsson's a very bad company. And what they're doing is it's not really, it's not the internet as we know it, it's an LTE connection through into the emergency responders. And they're using that to transmit data, and there's just so many things. You don't even know if the scan on the ballot, what that means. Your oval dot that you fill out could mean nothing, and everything is in that scan. So it's all predetermined, which is another thing that we can lobby for in the next session in Tallahassee is the paper ballot has to be the document of record. And we want, you could use your Dominion all day long, but we want to count the paper ballots at the precinct level and check it against the scan. It has to flip. So that's the biggest thing right there is counting, decentralizing this. You can't have all the mail ballots go to one big centralized location and there's 4 guys who decide who are counting the vote, right?
This is maybe the perfect time, even though he's discussing the presentation, but Herman Schnell is in charge of, sorry, Herman Schnell has just managed to arrive because he had another meeting. Herman is in charge of election integrity for Broward County, for the Broward County Republican
Start over.
Oh, that's fine.
You're gonna start
Sorry, it's on the spot.
Yes.
We do know for sure that Tallahassee keeps saying there's nothing wrong with Florida's election and that there's nothing wrong with the vote by mail and that it is safe. We think differently. Here's the election gentleman here, so we just had a presentation regarding that and also verified that there is a big problem.
I have one question. Sure. Why don't you put watermarks on every official ballot. So what, if they have to recount, they can scan it and see if the ballot has the watermark. If it doesn't have a watermark, that means they've duplicated it and it's a fake ballot.
So the problem with that is now that they changed the law in Florida that they made it illegal to recount paper ballots in 70/50. Yeah, the image is the master document. That's why I'm saying we have to get back to the paper ballot. And the watermark is great, but if they inject 100,000 voters, so I was at the audit in Maricopa County, and I also worked with Bob Shealy. He was Trump's attorney in Georgia, and the same characteristics. He was just indicted, by the way, with Trump.
They all have been.
So, but what we found was
It's a new hobby.
at least 17,000 ballots in Maricopa County that were mail-in ballots that weren't folded. So if there's a printer on the internet, they could send it, and I think Wendy Link on Thursdays had a little operation going during the early voting where there was a printer in the back, like two nice big fast printers and ballots. And I think that, I'm not saying she's directly involved, but somewhere along the line, you inject the voter registrations that I showed you. I'm not saying these illegals are gonna vote, but now they could print them to an internet printer somewhere and return the ballots. Right, so it doesn't, if it's watermarked or not,
How is all that important?
Serial number, barcode, something like that.
yeah, as long as we can count the paper ballots, and you see, if it's itemized, that's, and the other part of the equation is the 98.0981, that they don't have to report. Okay, if they have to report, and if we count the vote by mail ballots at the precinct level, it's gonna be impossible to have 3,000 vote by mail ballots, 180 and, 240 early in the same day. You're gonna catch that. So that whole reporting that's allowing them to obfuscate. And they can't do that, and they've been doing it for years. So 36% reached the sheriff's race. Are you familiar with the statute? It's if there's between 1 and 29 votes, they don't have to report a line by line detail. That has to go away. That obfuscated 37% of the votes in the sheriff's race in Palm Beach County, Diaz and Bradshaw.
It's
So
a compromise. The reason for that statute is because if there's only one vote, you can figure out how to vote.
yeah,
That's the reason.
but that's so you don't protect the few to endanger the masses. Number one, and there's no way in the Constitution that we have to have secret vote. In the old days, you used to go to the auditorium, Joe Biden go on that side, Trump on that side. So that's a whole bunch of that's just that's like injecting racism. They just say, oh, that's their mantra. It's gotta be secret vote. It doesn't.
Constitution.
And it's always wow.
It's in the Florida Constitution.
No, it's not.
Yeah, secret voting.
Secret and direct.
Yeah.
Okay, so right there eliminates vote by mail ballots. But what is secret vote? Secret, so your identity,
So your boss can know how you vote. Basically, your boss or your party or your union.
yeah, okay, I'll go along with that, because I just hit on secret and direct, and vote by mail ballots aren't really, you can't prove they're secret, because you could sit at the kitchen table, or someone could knock on your door. So we could switch that both ways. Okay, you're gonna worry about one person, or, who's gonna figure that out too? So I would argue that in Tallahassee all day long, saying that you're jeopardizing the masses for the few, and that's not how the government should work.
I agree that 29, limit, reduces your visibility because it clears the whole line of the whole report. And that's an issue there. So that is an issue there, but
So if you want to go to the Constitution, then we'll say, okay, if that's how you're determining secret, you bring that up, then I'm going to say that vote by mails aren't secret. Let them open that door.
yeah.
Because you can't, if you're a supervisor, I don't know if you were here for that part, but I know there was 292,000 vote by mail ballots in Palm Beach County, and you have a certifying official, so if I set her down on the stand, and I read the cast vote record, and said, can you swear or affirm that that ballot was cast in secrecy, she'd be lying, but she doesn't know. So let them bring up secret. And you know what? We'll give them the reporting, take away the vote by mail ballots.
Yeah. I mean, vote by mail ballot is not as bad as you guys think. The reason why is because the vote by mail ballot is the guy that we can check the most. We have the most time to verify it, to look at it. When you go vote in person, you can only challenge within 10 seconds of that person coming in. That's the way you can challenge that voter. You only got 10 seconds when you check in to you give the ballot to the voter. Unless you're there watching it, when you vote by mail, you got days to go in there, look at the envelopes, look at the paper ballot, look at the voter. So there gives more time for us to scrutinize the voters. So
Yes,
that's,
we get our vote by mail and we research it, and
Yeah.
then we go to the poll
correct.
and do it in person. You don't have to send it in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Case in point, Michelle has a friend who is 100 and some years old and doesn't get to go out, so she gives her ballot to her daughter. She is a Republican, her daughter is a liberal, and her daughter changes the vote.
Yeah, so back to your point, we don't need all that time. What about France? They got rid of vote by mail ballots. And you don't know so what they're doing is they're injecting identities and they're beefing up the voter rolls and they're printing ballots off somewhere. We know it. So I saw with my own eyes 17,000 in Maricopa County that were never folded, and they counted them. The ones in Georgia, I didn't see, but supposedly there's 148,000 locked up somewhere that they're basically holding as evidence.
No, that is good. Those two states are messed up. And the problem was that they were not watching.
Yeah, but it's human
They were
nature.
not watching as close.
Okay, so another thing that,
But this is the thing, you gotta have Republicans counting the votes. If Republicans don't become poll workers, and they don't show up to be poll workers, they're like the
the
Democrats.
poll workers don't count the votes. That's
Poll workers.
It's,
The poll workers, and you gotta be working in there as a worker. You
Hold
know,
on a second, I have a
So
question
what,
for you.
20 feet away?
I wanna know,
yeah.
same way you're able to look at those signatures inside a supervisor election. Can I hire people to sit and work in that supervisor election to do the same thing you're doing to look at those signatures?
You gotta apply for the job.
So,
And
so
it
it
is
can't
a-
be, so as a candidate, we are not allowed to,
To hire.
or to bring volunteers in to watch your
You can
signatures?
designate people for your campaign to watch every signature coming in, yes.
Okay,
So your
so,
candidate can designate a person. There's public inspection and there's candidate inspection. The law now has two different clauses. The public can see the paper ballots. The signatures are private, so they only allow certain people to watch the actual live signatures to compare to the voter file.
can an attorney do that? If
An
we,
attorney or a volunteer that you campaign beside. So we have it's called a designee. And they sign an affidavit that says, I agree not to copy the signature or to disclose the count that I see.
so, you know it's a total fraud, because what they tried to pass, the 70-50, was that you look at the last four digits of the social, and there is no signature verification. And this is based on what Carrie Lake discovered, where 8 guys in a room supposedly verified 182,000 ballots in 8 hours. It's not possible. So they're basically trying to accelerate, this is how I see it, the fraud, the potential, the pipeline. And the problem is with the distribution centers and the vote by mail ballots going to a distribution center, what they do is, well, you don't know if there's 3,000 or 30, because what they do is you get the 1 to 29 law and they count the ballot. The vote by mails have to be counted at the precinct level, and they'll root out the fraud. And Steve Byers, he ran for state senate against Lori Berman, 98% of the vote by mail ballots in one precinct went to Democrats. And it was over the number, we got away with, we got lucky where there was over 30. I don't have the precinct, I wanted to put it in my PowerPoint slides. It makes no sense. That means there's like 4,000 people who voted in one precinct. So the whole centralization theme is a problem. Where you have to go to, Riviera Beach and all the vote by mail ballots, they have to be counted at the precinct level. And the paper has to be the master document to count, and then you can compare it. If you knew what I knew, what I saw, I'm an IT guy, I just did an HBO documentary on the technology, and I worked with a lot of intelligence people on virtual machines, forensic copies. We had, not only do we have Mason County, we had Coffee County, Georgia, and Antrim County. So I'm on an NDA, I'm not supposed to talk about it, that's the documentary. But what we saw is, it's devastating. Like, we can't win it. If they keep the system the way it is, it's not just the machines, it's the servers, it's how they inject identities, it's how they print off vote by mail ballots. You know, you see what's going on with in Michigan with where they discovered that there was an 8,800 truck. Where they found semi-automatic weapons, and this was all. So Michigan, a lot of stuff's unraveling. I didn't absorb that, but I have a Michigan guy in the team. He knows everything, but it's devastating. We have to get to count the ballots, paper ballots. It has to be decentralized, and the voter rolls are taken. They should be thrown out. North Dakota has no voter rolls. You go, you vote with your ID. They have a list against the resident. There's a way to do it. To me, voter rolls, that is the ammunition that gives them the fire to steal the elections.
The question on the voter rolls, do you have any evidence of a dead voter though?
No, but I have four, okay, so we'll
Do
break.
you guys have anybody that actually, a dead voter, that votes? Has anybody shown that? I've been looking for that. A dead voter, that votes.
Okay, so I can show you right now.
In Florida. Show me a dead voter that votes.
I can show you.
Not that died, that dead.
I can show you right now that every week there's 56, at least 5,000 dead people being registered to vote.
Yeah.
You can go to SSA, socialsecurity.gov, /open/HAVV, okay? You can go there and look, and you'll see, in the whole country, there's 6,000 people. So are they registering them to vote just for fun, or are they gonna cast their vote? And I even know in Michigan, a dog voted.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah, I've heard that.
No, but there is proof that there is dead people registered to vote. There's no doubt about that, because when you die in a different state, they don't then send their certificate to Florida. So the supervisor elections doesn't know that that person died or somebody died outside the country. Okay? There is no mechanism to gather that information. The reason why it's so hard, because imagine the Democrats are calling and say, Carla is not registered to vote, take her off the voter roll. So it was that simple to remove her from the voter roll. It is very hard to remove somebody from the voter roll. Easy to add a person, because you can find a vote, but to remove it is a whole process. Imagine it's a person, answer the phone call, hey, I don't think Beverly is registered to vote, can you take her off the vote? The Democrats will be calling and taking all of them out of the vote.
That's the
Democrat
So
control
there is no
of the
doubt
election
there's dead
department.
people on
It's
the
reality.
vote.
Let me ask
The
you
issue
this.
is, are they voting?
Around the country.
I'm in the legal support business, okay? I run skip traces. You know what skip trace is? Basically the art of tracking someone down that you can't seem to find. I use skip traces on a day-to-day basis. I know when someone is dead. It tells me they're deceased.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's public record.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Why isn't that being affected with everybody?
They do as much as possible. In Florida,
But-
it's automatic. The death certificate goes to the SOE
automatic.
within a day.
Automatic.
No, it's not automatic.
Okay, so
Well, that would have to
so you're
problem.
saying that you're able to know when someone is deceased and
Yeah.
they
Now,
vote.
the other issue is, if you don't vote for 2 cycles, you become inactive. You know,
True.
that's another.
That's another scam.
Yeah, that's another-
They flip them.
Yeah.
This is what we call them. They flip them from active.
Yeah,
And it's how you become. So first of all, what you guys are talking about is like election fraud.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is election espionage, where it's in mass numbers, where they're injecting people that don't exist, and they're leveraging the vote by mail ballots. Not, you know, that stuff. That's the stuff we know that goes on. And that's
And what hurt Nez was that really, and how
Yeah.
the register went up.
that's on.
Probably the biggest number.
You got your phone? You got internet?
Just in Pennsylvania, we
No,
have
the illegals, I see the illegals because they go,
120,000 people were
they go
votes.
with their family, for example, the naturalization ceremony. When you go outside, you get your families become a citizen. They're outside raising to vote. And the whole family's there and they all raise to vote. Because they all think, oh, let's do it.
It's worse than that.
And so remember, this is the honor system.
Okay.
You swear that you're a citizen. This is an honor system. There's no verification that the application that you fill it on the penalty of perjury. But it is the honor system because that's the way the U.S. used to be. Everybody trusted each other. So that system hasn't been updated. That when you sign your registration, you affirm that the information is true. And you can say I'm a citizen. but there's nobody that is checking
They're
that.
supposed to
Nobody
check
verifies.
ballots.
It's been 750, they're gonna do that, yeah.
So, are you familiar with Help America, Verified Voters?
Yeah, yeah,
They'll have a, well, this is section 3 of
yeah,
HAVA.
yeah.
And you're allowed, what they do is they check, supposedly, the local jurisdiction will send the information to the feds, who check if it's okay or not. But what we're seeing, and this was from January 1st to May 13th, 2023, Texas had 962,000 new voters registered. Florida, in that same period, had about 300 a week, which is 26 weeks, 7,800, which is possible, but there's no way Texas had 1 million.
Yeah.
So they're going after they're trying to take another border state, another Katie Hobbs. That's what they're doing in Texas. And there's other states, Arizona, Georgia, the usual suspects that they're bolstering. Yes.
How many counties after our last election were there more people, more votes than people in the county?
Yeah, well, I go state by state. I know Pennsylvania had 225,000
Pennsylvania,
more votes, more ballots cast than voters registered. And we saw that in New York State. In New York State, we know who they are. We know how they're doing it.
None in Florida that I saw, unless you guys saw me one that I don't know about.
Florida?
What?
I can tell you in Florida that
The turnout was very low, so there was no more votes than voters didn't vote, because it was a very low turnout election. The Democrats didn't vote, so it didn't matter. There was no more votes than voters, because it was a low turnout.
And what I can't believe is, in these counties where there was more votes than people, why didn't they void
so this is what
certification?
so that's part of what that New York Citizens audit is targeting. Exactly that. Putting the folks that sign their names, that swear or attest that the election is certified, suing them now for what we know and what we can prove, and putting them on notice for the next time. And also Michigan, they never, Wayne County, Michigan, they never really certified the election in 2020. There's a woman named Monica Palmer. She was threatened. She was one of the certifying people.
But they didn't sign it. She didn't sign it.
Well, it's
Yeah, so they
it's
didn't
not
sign
certified.
it.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I went to the
Indict
bank.
her! Indict
No,
her!
yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing, the reason why there is no consequence for not signing, so nothing happens unless you sue civilly. So this is like a catch-22. Those states, oh, you say nothing happens. You don't have to sign.
But so what can we do in Florida? Like if you're lobbying with
Well, in Florida, you have to sign it.
no, but what can we do, right? In Florida, we can't allow them not to. We need to vote at the precinct level, and the paper ballot has to be the master document. They're brainwashing everyone. I have a text from Mike Caruso. He's a state rep. He acknowledges ballot harvesting scams. Okay, in the text, he said, yeah, they approached my wife. Okay, and I went ballistic on them. And the next day, when 750 was signed, I told him he has to go on the floor.
Well, it was changed to a felony now.
The Ciones flew, big deal, they don't prosecute. The Ciones flew him
It's a felony.
to Israel.
Harvesting is now a felony. It used to be a misdemeanor.
Yeah, but they don't prosecute, who cares? Right?
Who? We haven't had an election yet.
But they don't prosecute the law.
Well, we wait. How you know?
They do it because I've had nursing homes attest that Debbie Wasserman she'll send her people
Yes.
in to collect those ballots in the nursing
But
homes.
there hasn't been an election within the law yet.
And that's what she
Yeah, but
does.
still, it's a felony, it's a misdemeanor.
No, Miami-Dade County is
right?
the same.
So this text.
So we can't deny that these things happen.
So they know what's going on, and he almost broke out. Okay, Mike Caruso, we met, and he said, "Yeah, it's bigger than all of us.
Of course.
We can't stop." And I know that 7050 was a cookie cutter that Eric Holder and Suzanne Rice, they basically authored that with Mark Elias, and they pushed it out to every state, and they wanted that no signature verification, use the last 4 digits. They wanted the third-party NGOs, third-party voting organizations, to allow non-citizens to register voters because they're registering them in the Garin Gap before they even come in to the country. And they're holding these stacks and stacks of them. And they're using the CBP1 app, and the Mexican cartels have hacked it. So I have a lot of intelligence on
That
what.
did not pass, though. That did not pass.
No, yeah, but the federal judge said we have to allow it.
Well, we'll be on that, don't worry.
Yeah,
It's on appeal. Don't worry about that. It's on appeal.
What are you saying, things only happen in this country when they're really the law? Is that what you're trying to
No, the law
say?
was, the law
You're
was.
saying it didn't pass. They don't care in this country if it's a law that's passed or not. They do what the hell they want.
About the verification of the ballot using the Social Security as a pin number.
no, that's different than the third-party NGOs. So the third-party voting organizations, which are non-governmental organizations, in 7050 they banned a non-citizen from working at a third-party NGO.
Yeah.
But a federal judge,
Well, it's the same judge every time, which is gets overruled by Supreme Court every time. It's a Democrat judge.
Yeah,
And then it gets overruled every single time.
Yeah.
It's a crazy judge.
yeah.
Yeah, so that happens.
not, well,
We'll go through the appeal, Supreme Court Florida, smack him down.
hopefully.
Yeah.
So this is the text. This is Crusoe saying, I'm saying that this, I cut it off accidentally, is that a Haitian couple promised me, if I paid it 85, I ran for Congress in Lower Frankel district, I switched to Brian Mass by the end of the cycle, but in Palm Beach County, we have a lot of Haitians, and this couple, they approached me and said, for $85,000, we'll make sure you win the primary, we'll get you all the Haitian votes, we'll go and get all the ballots. I sent him a text about it, and he says, yeah, they do that. Tracy, his wife, who ran for the mayor, of Del Rey, they approached her too. He's saying it, his words. And she got no Haitian vote. So how are you a state legislator? That's malfeasance, that's something. That you don't bring that up. And then the whole thing's a cover-up. He didn't have to go to Israel to sign that bill. That's because we were pressuring him so hard to go on the floor in Tallahassee and tell everybody about this. So the next thing you know, I'm in Israel. These people are not our friends. I don't trust them in Tallahassee. They're working against the people. It's a good old boys network. I'll tell you something else it's not even, no one yet heard this story. The night before November 8th was the last election. On November 7th, I got an email, and it was a signed letter saying that the Department of Justice is sending federal agents to assist and make sure there's no civil rights violations in these counties, Palm Beach, Broward, Dade. So, and it said if you see a federal agent, this is the guy's name is Brian McVaney, I think he's a lawyer for the Department of State. If you see a federal agent, to call the sheriff, and this is the law that they're breaking, have them arrested. So I texted everyone in your rec, Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie. And then the Republican Party of Florida said, no, that I'm misguided. If you see a Fed, go to the RNC website and report it. So I said, well, if you see a rape, you go to our website. This is a crime. So the Republican Party of Florida isn't working for us either.
No,
They're working against us.
that is
100%.
true.
We told everybody to report the feds. What do you mean?
I'll show you the texts.
We said,
You don't report the feds, report to the sheriff. Report the feds to the sheriff.
Yeah.
I'll show you the text back from,
So that was you. That was your text.
yes,
Was it report to the sheriff?
yes.
I read that.
And then I got and then the RPOF, the two girls, I forgot the names, that they control, I did the math, like 20% of all the counties, they teach the poll workers what to do. And they're not teaching them, like I got some stuff on reporting that's really like
Now, do
devastating.
you really believe the Broward County Sheriff is going to arrest the FBI agents? Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think that if you call the DSO to arrest an FBI
considering he's a
agent?
convicted murderer, I don't think so.
I know.
But
So
that-
we want to create that issue. We think
But
about
this-
practical. We are in there. We saw your text, and we're sitting in there. So then, what do? We have for you? Call the DSO. He arrest the FBI.
Yeah.
And go in the media, make a big fuss of it. Republicans are asking DSO to arrest the FBI agent. So the issue that we said was, do not talk to the
It's a
FBI.
law, I don't care, it's a
Why do you think
law.
the
It should be
FBI is
illegal.
developing any laws?
And this is the problem. If you look, so I saw the memo from the Department of Justice, and it went from 2018. It was 44 counties in 24 states. It went to 28 states, and 64 counties. And it's all the counties, like, where there's foul play, like the counties in Kennesaw, in the city of Milwaukee, it's all where they cheat, and it's getting worse. And this is why we got 6.5 million more votes in the midterms than we did in the last cycle, and we barely took the House.
Okay, but so I did speak to those FBI agents. They were at some of the precincts. I know you saw them over there, and I asked to talk to them. I said they were not allowed to go in the precincts. They cannot go in. They were just sitting in the parking lot waiting to see if somebody complains or something. But they did not have directives to go inside the precinct.
So that's the problem. That's one of the things Mike Lindell pointed out, which I'm not a big Mike Lindell fan. But they're using the Ericsson LTE system to transmit from the actual voting machines. So those guys could be out in the cars picking up the cellular signal. They shouldn't even be anywhere near it.
Okay, but what do you think they're going to do with that?
Just keep the feds got to stay out of our elections.
And do what with that data? So here's the issue with that. What happens when you close the poll? And this is the like people are transmitting data wirelessly. We do that. In some counties they use a USB drive, they take it off. In Broward County we use a wireless system, which is a modem. At the end of the day, when you close the polls at 7 o'clock, you transmit the results. Well, what happens before you transmit the results? When you press the button that says close poll, it prints a tape with the actual results. And only after that tape is printed, then they transmit the results. Now, we're supposed to have poll watchers taking a picture of that tape, okay? And when that tape, they send me those pictures, I wait for the results of the voter, and I make sure they match the tape. Because the transmission happens after there's a tape, which is posted at the doors. And you guys have poll watchers, I will ask you guys, take pictures of those tapes. So, have I ever seen a discrepancy between a tape and a transmitted vote? Now, remember the other thing that happens is they bring the ballots back physically to the SOE, And then we do a random audit, the post audit, which is done in Florida. We randomly pick one precinct, one race out of the whole 500 precincts, and we can count it by hand, human beings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we see if it matches the data.
Who counts it?
2 employees.
Employees.
Republican and Democrat.
Employees.
In public. In public, right here, you can see. Now, who gets to pick the precinct? I do. I decide what precinct I'm going to pick. Do they think they know who they are? They ask me, which one you want? I want X19 and I want that race, the judge's race. Because I think they want it with the most votes. I don't want to pick one with this. How do they know that I'm going to pick that race and they're going to pick those ballots?
But if they're getting real-time transmissions, it's not hard to go into there and change, take 100 votes from one guy during real time.
But how do they fix the tape?
Before you, it's real time, before you close.
They know what the numbers are.
They're watching them.
They see them.
They're watching them as they come in.
But the machine is not connected until
No, but it is. They're using the Ericsson LTE network. And this is
No, in the DS200s, the modem is only activated after you close the polls and you print the tape. There is no transmission. They have Wi-Fi on the EBIS.
It's not Wi-Fi.
No, on the EBIS is Wi-Fi. When you check in, they use Wi-Fi because that's how you check in, because it's real time, so you don't go twice. There's 2 different systems. The check-in system, when you put your driver license, and that's real time connected, so you cannot just go in the precinct. So that's connected to the internet.
So
every day.
But he's saying that the Ericsson system, okay?
Not Eric, but that's different.
Ericsson.
Oh, Ericsson, yeah.
Ericsson system is connected to the Wi-Fi.
It's not Wi-Fi. It's not
Wi-Fi,
So
but
in
it's
Broward
connected.
County, so this is
But
what
it's
they do.
connected.
In Broward
A
County,
wireless system.
in Broward County, the modems on the DS200, which is a tabulator, when you put your paper in, they connect to the EOC network, which is the Emergency Operating Center network. They want to use for the police system.
Yep.
And they connect to the emergency center.
Why?
They use a VPN because it has a high priority. And they connect and they send it back to the SOE, to the server. That's the only connection. So they only send the data. And remember, you have to know when they're transmitting. This is not like you know when it's happening. This is whatever time they get at the precinct and they press a button. It doesn't happen exactly.
So how do you know if they didn't change 100 votes?
That's what I was about to say.
Because there's a tape.
before you print the tape.
It's not connected to the internet.
Okay, now I
It's
should
not
take your word
connected
for
until you
it.
call.
Trust but verify. I can go there and I can find, I can see all the open networks on my phone.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's transmitting or not.
No, the network,
And listen,
the
it's not-
Wi-Fi is not on the
I'm
DS200.
not-
The Wi-Fi is on the EVIT. There is no Wi-Fi on the DS200. The DS200 is a dial-up modem that goes to a particular added connection.
So, you know how easy, you know how small a modem could be to transmit to EOC, and you'll never know it? Have you ever watched a movie, there's an HBO documentary, and it shows exactly this, and how the tape has changed. It's called Hacking Democracy. It's from 2006, and this was the whole rage, because everyone thought that the election was stolen from Al Gore, from the Democrats. So it's great evidence, because it's showing that it was stolen from a Democrat. Now, there was another one, and so that's part of the tapes, how they switch it. They show you right there how it could be done in the movie. I know the guy, his name is Hari Herstein, okay? We're not friends. He's a liberal, and he says my work is bad. I say his work is okay, but he hates me. He wanted to be in, we just filmed, I just got from Georgia, that's why I have no voice. We just filmed the third documentary on the 2020 election. And if you watch the first two, it'll answer everything you're telling me is, yeah, you're a nice guy. I believe you, but your truth, what you think is the truth, might not be the truth. And not only that, it could only take a few precincts in each county to throw something. Trust but verify. And so
you're saying that
one precinct isn't good enough for me.
Let's say this. So in order to do this, you have to change the activity log on the DS200, which show when they're connected. When you print the log, says you close the polls, print the tape, transmit results. So you say that's fake, correct?
Those numbers could be manipulated
problem
during
is
the
before.
course
So
of the time.
So the firmware on the DS200s doesn't record the transmissions during the day. That's what you said. The modem connections that are
This is a
done in
result.
secret are not logged
Who
in.
poured the votes in the
Then we
machine?
have the tape
That's
which
the
is
problem.
fake. And then the paper ballots, which are the actual ballots, they also change those?
No, but that's why so now this is the reason why they're not allowing us to count paper. They want to only go to images.
But remember, there is recounts.
But you're,
So when they do the recounts, they
they
fake all the
print
paper.
the images for recounts.
No, we have the recount paper.
Not the actual, not the original vote.
They do. How do you do the recounts of voter?
When you, that's not a when you do one precinct, you're calling that a recount?
No, that's an audit.
Yeah.
No. In Broward County, we always have recounts because we have races that are within 100 votes. And we had those. We had a DeSantis recount, Rick Scott recount, thousands and thousands of votes. Those are paper recounts, and we actually.
Are you counting the actual ballot that was cast by the voter, or are you counting? Are they printing the image?
No.
How do you know that? What you're counting is real.
Because you're in a room with 100 people.
Okay, but so how do you know you're actually?
They get the paper ballots and put them back into the tabulator.
So how comes when I called 3 days after the election to see if I can see the ballots, you guys said it was already, you no longer had the ballots there?
Yeah, because the process is very fast.
Where
You
they
wanna
go?
see the
Yeah,
envelope?
but why, I thought we had to keep them for a
You can
certain
see the
amount of time.
ballots. The ballots, remember, the envelopes, they have to be open.
Forget the envelopes.
No, yeah,
You're talking
no,
about envelopes?
yeah. No, I'm talking about the ballots itself.
The ballots are available to receive.
Well, when I called, they said no, they were not
And you have to
available.
check 70/50 now. They're trying to take that.
They said it was not available. I called myself and they told me it was not available. That was already gone.
Well, they do it in the morning. Then they have to process those ballots and then they store them in the boxes. Remember, they have to, it's a production line.
Yeah, but you don't
They
have it on
them sitting
site?
around. What's that?
They're not on site still in Broward County for 3 days? Why would they ship them
The
away?
ballots are, you can do a public record right now if you want to see your ballots.
No, you can't.
Yes, they're sent for 22 months.
No, they're
you
not,
can't.
they're not there. They're
No,
not
first
there.
they changed it now. You have to be an approved NGO now. Check the 70/50. A citizen can't get them, and a candidate only has 30 days.
No, you're a candidate.
You have 30 days.
The designee. You can ask for the ballots, yes. For
When
22
I
months.
called, they told me I could not see the ballots.
Call him.
All in.
That's
what they told me.
I saw the ballots every day. Now, you understand, there is a process, they have to move them, they open the envelopes, they take out the ballots, they put them for public display every morning, they're in the room, you can see them all. You can go to everyone if you like.
Can't touch them.
You're talking
Alright, so-
about mail-in
No, you touch
ballots.
them.
You're talking about mail-in ballots.
Yes.
She's talking about voter ballots.
All voted.
No,
No,
the
the
mail,
priest-
the mailing, the mailing.
the mailing
ballots.
ballots.
You're talking about
No,
mail-in?
just ballots overall.
Yeah, exactly.
Ballots overall.
You're talking about all, you're only talking about mail-in.
Yeah, they are available. They're publicly available to see every morning. And then you can see the envelopes, and then you can see the actual, from the day before, you can see the envelopes that day.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack. You can't find fraud like that. You're not gonna sniff out fraud. It's so complex, and they can cheat on so many levels. And the software that you guys use, ES&S, I wouldn't run it to run a candy store, okay? It's old, it has gaps. We did a scan, okay, for potential vulnerabilities. We got 3,700 pages. We got the word corruption 22,000 times, okay? So the servers and the level of complexity on where the vulnerabilities are, the general public would never find it. It's election espionage. And the consulting firm that Florida uses to do the updates and to basically run the systems, they're in charge of the firewall, so they have all access. They're in charge of the software. They're in charge of the operating system. There's no segregation of duties. That would never, ever fly. And like Sarbanes-Oxley, they go to jail.
Okay, well, which server are you talking about?
Talking about the tabulation server at the county jurisdiction. The one that you don't see, the one that they say it goes to Amazon, and we send the results from so we're all you're talking about is connecting. You say it's going somewhere by modem, the EOC, and it goes somewhere. Each county has a server,
Yes.
and those are the servers that are getting infected. We know it.
Well, those are air gapped. They are gapped.
Yeah, okay.
They are gapped.
They're not.
Yes. They are gapped.
They're not air gap. I know for how do they? Okay, so if they're air gap, how does Silo get the information? How does the AP get the information? How do I see the ticker symbol on the votes?
They use USB drive.
So they're every 10 minutes.
Yes.
You get,
They use USB.
they're not. I know they're not. And also, I've been listen. Let me tell you something else that's going on.
Este otro tipo
Let me tell you
trabaja en el
something
comité de
that's going on.
elecciones.
I've owned a Microsoft consultancy since the 90s, and I did a lot of development work. And I work with a lot of Serbian programmers. And these Serbian programmers went on to work for Dominion and ES&S and Diebold. And what I'm hearing back from them is that they know that we're onto them. Because we did audits on 4 actual tabulation servers in different counties. Coffee County, Georgia, Antrim County, Michigan, Mason County, Colorado, and fourth one I forget off the top of my head. But here's what they're doing. Now they're going to say, we're sending all the data up to Amazon, okay? All the data is going to go to Amazon. And what they're writing, and so the programmers are telling me this,
And Amazon
that we've been
receives
hired
million and
to write
million
the
dollars.
interface to get into Amazon. So you guys are going to push all your data to Amazon. You think it's going to go to Sidle and Reuters, but we're going to just change it before it gets there. That they're building this out as we speak.
No, but that's for the reporting for the news you're talking about.
The
For news
report-
report. For the news report.
They're changing
It's
it.
not for the official record.
Yes,
That's for the news report.
This is election espionage. If you knew what I knew standing here, you wouldn't be as lackadaisical.
I have a suggestion. I really think you two ought to get together.
Give me something, I'll fix it.
Herman, if you would
But
be
it's-
willing,
Yeah, I'm willing to listen to some.
because I know you're willing.
Yes,
And that's why
I
I wanted
fix
to.
it on hold all the time, yes.
And Jeff has the ammunition and evidence.
Do you think this espionage is gonna come out when Trump has to go to court and pulls out all this evidence to the grand jury?
So I think it's going to shed some good light. Like I said, I was working with Bob Cheely, his attorney. He has 2 cases in Georgia, and they're now they're on hold. So I think it's a good thing, but this is my logic on going after using the 104.43, which is what the candidates can use, to bring a crime to the grand jury, and we go and I show them the 1,441 people who are over 100 years old, who haven't voted and are still active, and I want to walk into the grand jury and say, I want a criminal complaint against Wendy Lane, okay? If they say yes, then we start the subpoena, and then I go into the tech stuff, because I got shut down. They all say, I said, listen, can you just give me a virtual image? I don't want anything else. I just want a virtual image. Give me of that election server. Oh no, that's the state. The government takes care of that. These people are brainwashed. And you know what? Have you seen the Florida Constitution, anybody? Lately, the oath they take when they're sworn into office, they changed it. They're swearing an oath to the Constitution and the government. So in their mind, and also the Second Amendment, they changed the right to bear arms, unless they added, I don't know when this was done, I'm still looking at it, but these elected officials think that they answer to the government, and is the proof that is positive just by reading the Constitution, the oath of office that they take. It's different than federal. And when you ask them something, oh, the government takes care of that. No, you can't see that. I have the next one up. What's her name? Vicky Martin or something. The Martin County. Vicky from Martin County. I have her on I reported it illegal. She didn't know. I admit it. Arrest me. But I said, how can we just come in and poke at your servers, take a look around? I want to run a vulnerability scan. She got all defensive. She said, oh no, the government takes care, the governor's office takes care of that. I'm like, oh, and it's the same 5 guys running the whole state at a consulting firms that run the firewall, that run the operating system, that runs the application. You can't do that. They have access to everything.
So it's a catch-22. You're saying that the spineless people can get into the servers, but then you're complaining that you cannot get into the server. So how can you have it both ways?
I'm talking about after the election is done, to do it, just to do a vulnerability test. Vulnerability test isn't getting into the server.
So you think that the SOE should let anybody that calls you on the phone, I want to access your server, give me your image. Do you think that's okay?
It's my that's why they should go away. That's my taxpayer dollar paying for that server, paying for that consultant. So yes. And you know what? Right now, we unpacked all of the programming in a Dominion server. So all this stuff that's supposed to be proprietary, it's on the internet, okay? And so right now, you can't use Dominion. We can make this case. Now, I'm not saying I did it, but it's out there. So the code for Dominion, for any Dominion server, is on the internet. How can we use it? How can, and ESNS is the same thing. It's from a system called GEMS, and it was built by Diebold, but what they did was, they just packaged crap around it. It's the same basic core, and they even made it harder to detect fraud, because everything's related to ports and open ports. Well, why do you need that port open? Oh, that's so this to connect to that. It makes no sense. They have like 3 million lines of code, and you only need 80,000. And we even have testimony from Eric Coomer saying, yeah, they hide it. It's so you can't find it. We had to go through 3 million lines of bullcrap to get to the 80,000 lines of real code.
So you're saying there is source code somewhere
we got
that decides to change Republican votes to Democrat votes?
No, these are what we call vulnerabilities that are perceived as basically functionality for cheating, right? It's intentionally weakened.
Well,
like,
how does the software know to change that?
The software doesn't. The software allows it. The software allows.
So the software is not on its own. There is somebody, a human being involved.
Yeah, it's hackable.
Because there is a human being changing the vote.
Let me ask you this: do you have Wi-Fi at home?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people outside of your household are tied into your Wi-Fi?
Oh, I know who's in my home.
Okay, not inside your home, not inside your internal home. Who's outside? Your neighbors. Do you know how many are hacked into your
network? My Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Oh, I know exactly who's under my Wi-Fi.
Right. In your household.
Yeah.
I'm talking outside your household. Your neighbors.
People not in your home, other people.
How do you know do you know how many people are hacked into your network?
I wouldn't know, yeah.
No.
No, you would.
I wouldn't
No,
know.
nobody.
That's why it's called hack.
Nobody said that.
How would they get an IP address? How many do I know? I know exactly what
They scan your shit. I have over 100 IT certifications, right? Some of them are in security. And the first thing you learn is zero trust. tolerance, and you don't have it, so you really shouldn't even be in that position, because you don't have zero trust tolerance. You don't. You just exposed that you're not a zero trust tolerance mindset.
Okay, so let me give you on my home, every device has a DHCP reservation. Okay? So you cannot get a DHCP unless I know the MAC address of the device connected to my DHCP. Okay? So there is no way.
Who makes it? Who makes it?
Alright,
Who makes it? What do you have?
What's that?
You have a router from the cable company?
No, I got a server.
You have a server?
Yeah, Windows server.
Okay, what's your firewall? And your firewall is what?
What do you mean firewall?
Okay.
I have two. I gotta tell you how my
What I'm trying to get at, and I can see that you understand it, but the average household has
Correct.
just standard Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Correct. They couldn't.
And
they didn't have
anyone
it.
outside
They
your
Correct.
internal household can easily hack in,
Correct.
right? That's why they have two-factor authentication, the whole 9 yards.
Wi-Fi is active.
Right, so that, I think what he's getting at is, it can be hacked if you have the right tools and person.
That's why the FBI sits
Yeah.
outside of the
Exactly.
supervisor election.
Exactly.
They have the high tech.
So how does a hacker,
to do it.
There's a big- how does a hacker to the Wi-Fi change the page about?
I never said that happened.
No.
Did I say that once? That
So
that
how,
happened?
but tell me how do they change the numbers so it doesn't matter?
So-
When you do a recount, so then when there is a recount in Florida, which happened many times in our
To
county,
change them, they just
how
have
does
to
the
flood
recount
the,
numbers
they just
match
have
the
to
data?
flood
So how do you
ones that
explain
are
that?
illegal.
How does the recount numbers match the data? Explain that.
So, a recount of an entire election?
Yes. How does it match the numbers?
So, you've had recounts where and when?
We had DeSantis, Rick Scott, we had Sheila, she won by 6 votes. We recounted that race, so that's 200,000 votes. We recounted pretty much.
How do you know the vote by mail ballots were authentic? In Sheila's race, she had not every single line. It was 1 to 29, miraculously. There was not one legitimate detail. I keep pointing to say I had 98.098, 2A. Why do they change the 3C? They changed it. They're trying to hide it. Number one, Tallahassee, zero trust. But in Sheila's election, not one detail of one precinct was reported in detail. It's in.
Well, unless you have access to the 45A, which shows that it has all that.
So how do you know the vote by mail ballot? They didn't print off 120, and they flipped it from active to inactive, and they sent them out and they folded and they mailed
So
it back.
you're saying that Sheila.
I'm not saying
yeah,
anything.
no,
I'm saying
no.
you see that's why you're not zero trust.
No, you're telling me that Sheila was able to
I
hack
didn't say Sheila was.
over their home.
I didn't say Sheila was. Did I say Sheila?
Saying possibilities that this can
I'm saying
happen.
could this happen? This is zero trust.
Possibilities that these things can
They
happen.
can happen, yeah, it can easily happen.
100%.
Let me
So
say
who
this.
changed the vote?
Hold on,
Who
hold
went in
on.
there and changed the vote?
Hold on a second.
Yes.
If we're gonna be biased just on one side, then we'll never know the truth. We have to be open to make sure that we're looking to make sure that it's completely protected, as to the best of your ability. And that's what we don't see. You can't just say, it doesn't happen, or show me the truth. You have to be there to secure and make sure nothing goes on that's out of the norm. But if we automatically assume that everything is fine, then there's no point. That is just a loss.
You gotta verify it.
It's a loss.
You have to verify
We
it.
went, there was a meeting, I don't know if you were there, Carla, but it was, a while back when the guy, what's his name, Scott, for the, election, is that his name?
Joe
Scott
Scott.
Preston?
Yes, Scott.
The Scott Press or Joe Scott?
Scott, I think it's Scott.
The what, the supervisor of elections
Yes,
or?
yes.
Joe Scott.
Scott, right. So I asked him a question. I said, you know, whatever, something really bad is happening in Maricopa County. Did
Yep.
you look at that at all? Like, have you even asked a question about it? And he basically said, it's not worth our time. Like, it wasn't even like even a consideration at the time for him to even look at it. And so I don't know. I found it to be so baffling to me, because if I'm responsible for something, I want to know all the ins and outs, all the little details of it. to make sure that I
It's a
know.
whole different system. They use Brown Bag, it's a whole different
I
system.
would say this, bring back the old system, there's no physical counting, with poll judges behind those two that are counting. The ballots, right now, we know that doesn't happen.
Think of how people fought to win the.
So, but again, you guys are telling me that there's bad
being
people
lazy.
changing results, and you want more people now.
But tell me when
Yes.
I know who.
And
We
is
want
it
the
gonna be good
people, we want the
And these are
people at
good
the
people?
precincts to count. We don't want
And
4
these are
or 8
good
people,
Yes.
and we don't,
Good because of what? What do you know they're good?
what's that?
How do you know they're good people?
How do I know they're good people? Because there's oversight, and they're only
Yes.
responsible for 1,000 votes the most at the precinct level. There's not, when you centralize, that's when you open the door for mass fraud, not just 1 or 2 guys, dead guys voting. So between the obfuscation of the reporting, that's the biggest red flag. Yeah, secret, but we're not gonna let one guy, basically, allow for the obfuscation of 37% of the vote. But getting back to Maricopa County, and this is Dominion, Eric Comer, saying our shit is just riddled with bugs, okay? This is actual testimony, and it's intentional. And over here he says, it does not get much worse. And also, it's how they do the implementations, okay? SQL servers wide open, there's even the there's dynamic link libraries, DLLs, which encompasses different commands. They're even, they have faults, they have vulnerabilities, and they're being actually accepted by the operating system, and they're not getting picked up as viruses. And part of the reason is they're using an old system of .NET. They don't want to update. It's always done enough time to update. They're using like Windows Server 2016. I can show you the scan where, let's see, 3,700 pages of vulnerabilities. The word corruption is returned 8,448 times. We did the same scan on 4 different jurisdictions, their servers, and we got just about the same thing. It's intentional. You don't see a deep state, like you don't even see what's going on in the world. They want the border open. They want Trump out. You had 51 intelligence agents lying about Hunter Biden's laptop so the deep state can remain in power. You don't think they're gonna figure out this to inject CRT and to take the country over? Like that's not beyond the scope of reality. What you're like? I've been saying this for years, but now we have the proof is in what we're seeing every day.
Yeah, I'd say definitely do a one-on-one with y'all. I mean, I do one-on-ones all the time. But, yeah, that and I move to adjourn.
Yeah.
After 9.
I'll take a motion. Jeff, thank you so much. I really hope that this is.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I hope you guys continue the discussion and what we learned here, and anything we can do, back to the action items.
Yes.
Please, get back to me, and let's find the video Carla was talking about, and I'll share it with everybody. I know it's late, so you don't want to wait for it now, but we will share that, and we will share action items here. Please be motivated by this. Let's see what Jeff comes back with, what we can physically do, each one of us. Because if we don't do something now, who knows what's gonna happen to the It's frightening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Jeff, Florida is pretty much, it's not as bad as other states.
Well,
But look how many votes it took to win the presidential election. What was it, 31,000?
the problem with Florida is the small race, it's the CRT, it's the county level that we're losing. It's also that the selected candidates like Ryan Mass in my race getting the first 50 cast vote records in sequential order. That's not possible. So everybody thinks Ryan Mass is great, the war hero, blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, everyone that runs against him gets their teeth kicked in because they don't want that to gain momentum and go after him a second time or a third time. So, in my estimation, there is over 30,000 fake votes in my district. And it's to keep him in power. And what has he done? He's a gun grabber, right? His net worth went from 60,000 to 10 million in 6 years. How'd that happen? He never had another job. He's disabled, and he's not doing Nike commercials. How did that happen?
Don't go. I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Good.
In the 50s, Nikita Khrushchev from Russia said something very interesting. In U.S., the most important is not the voters.
Yep, it's who counts them.
Yeah, and everybody knows here in U.S. the Democrats control all the election committees.
Yep.
Nationwide. Then, what are we doing about that? The Republican Party. We need people inside the committees, to control. What are we doing?
So, the Republican Party is, I believe, in many cases, it's not representing the grassroots people. It's representing their leadership, which is, I believe that the Bushes and the Obamas, we have a uniparty, a coalition of politicians, as we saw in Texas with the impeachment of Ken Paxton. So the grassroots need to take back the county level, the supervisory elections, and the school boards, and we need to figure out a way to go back to paper ballots, hand counted at the precinct level.
Okay,
that's a great start.
Then coming the problem, because everybody think about the presidential election, but the real problem is on the base. We need to change the officials on the base, mayors, commissioners, everything.
Yes.
Because the election committee is on the base.
A good friend of mine, his name is Colonel John Mills. He just wrote a book. It's up there in the top 10. It's called The Nation Will Follow, and it's about how Loudoun County, which is basically in the heart of DC, and it's all deep state administrators and bureaucrats that live there. Well, how the moms flipped the county and got Glenn and helped to get Glenn Youngkin elected as governor. So in The Nation Will Follow, the theory is you take it back at the town level, town council level, at the county level, at the school board level, and the nation will follow.
Yeah,
That's the
great.
concept.
But we have a big problem here in U.S. because everybody knows the Democrat control again and again. It's the same, the election committee and the corporation.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, for example, my Zuckerberg donate $482 million to Georgia election committee. It's private. How can you explain that? Why we can make something about that?
So you're saying who? Soros? You said?
No.
Oh.
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerbucks.
Facebook owner.
Or Zuckerbucks.
Yeah. $482 million to Georgia. Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Really?
All the media put in the first plane. Oh, Zuckerberg donate $482 million to support the election, the next election. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
what is that? And nobody from the Republican Party say nothing.
This is a huge problem. I'm
Yeah,
glad you brought that up. I didn't know
and
that.
the 2020 he put in 4,086.
Yeah.
486 million on the election.
This is to one state, Georgia.
Now.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And we know everything about because maybe he is an honest man, but he can talk about all the election committees around the country. It's impossible. We saw the problem in Maricopa. We saw the problem in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, etc., etc., etc. How many dead people vote at the election? However, the Constitution say it's enough one case
So the 482 million, that's really concerning to me because that's enough to bribe people and to throw an election. And I don't know why it's being funneled through Georgia. Was that a payback? Was it a reward to Governor Kemp for standing behind Fannie Willis's indictment? And one of the things that I noticed since the Trump indictment in Georgia, the number of illegals that were registering that I showed on the graph, they dropped from 25,000 a week to hundreds, to only 200 and 300. So I believe that we need to investigate that $482 million. And Brian Kemp is a Republican, and he's not our friend.
Yeah. Last question. What do you think about the future of the Georgia case against Trump?
I think it's backfiring. It's going to backfire. I think the power of subpoena is going to prevail. I think that basically it's good versus evil, and good will prevail.
God bless you, man.
Thank you.
Okay. How you doing?
Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Did you get a whole video?
Yeah, of course. It's live.
You have my information?
No, you can find just Garin USA on YouTube and you take the video.
Right now.
Okay. I have your card. I text you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Oh, no.
Thank you for invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bueno. Thank you. We need it. Not me. We need to change. We need to change everybody on the base. Everybody. Thank you for your opinion.
I keep saying there are more of us than there are of them. I truly believe it. Most people are afraid to speak up.
Yeah, that is a problem. That is a problem.
Next to my door, I have a Trump sign. More people who come go. I like that.
Look, we leave the fraud and the last election in the primary inside the Republican Party. We need to change everything, not just the official in this moment. No. We need to change the Republican Party.
Good luck in Miami-Dade, because last time I was in downtown Miami, the homeless have better tents than I do. So, that's my problem. So, but, it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, we need to clean.
Yeah.
And yet,
But clean. Don't worry. We're working. No, pleasure. Thank you. Bueno, gente, ya lo vieron, con esto me despido de ustedes. Bueno, le hice unas preguntas ahí al final para ver lo que decía él. Y bueno, es increíble lo que nosotros vemos, lo que estamos viviendo aquí. Él expuso las pruebas que tienen al principio del programa, una parte que me perdí. Expuso las pruebas que tienen, las pruebas que tenemos, las pruebas que estas pruebas que ya están documentadas, como ustedes vieron, están en pantalla documentadas con reacciones, interrogatorios, declaraciones por parte de testigos, de gente que fueron arrestadas también y que hablan de las elecciones. Esas pruebas que dicen los demócratas que no tenemos, que no existen, ahí están. Y es muy probable, bueno, ya oyeron las últimas palabras de él, lo que va a pasar, estamos convencidos que la batalla la tenemos ganada, pero no podemos sentarnos a perder la guerra, porque a esta gente no se le puede dar ni un minuto de ventaja. Así que bueno, con esto me despido de ustedes por hoy. Yo creo que bastante trabajo se ha hecho. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Gracias por estar. Fueron pocos porque la gente se aburre, pero bueno, no importa, ya lo verán, poco a poco. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Al presidente Donald Trump y a esta gran nación. God bless America. Bye bye.